So, speaking to you this evening is obviously myself, Tulare, doing the introduction. We will be discussing the technology strategy for Inscape with Paul Mowat, devices and software with Miguel de Figueredo, onboarding and support with Neil Tubernis, as well as the student perspective with Jenny McKenzie. And then at the end, as I've suggested, that we would have the Q&A where you can pose any questions that you've got regarding what has been presented. If your question is outside of what has been presented, we will try our best to answer it. For example, if it's a question for the registrar, we'll do our best to answer it, but we'll definitely then keep that information and make sure that we get you the required response. So without further ado, again, welcome. We're here to talk tech, and tech is comprehensive at Inscape. It's the systems that we use, it's the devices that students use, it's the support and maintenance thereafter of those devices that you have acquired or the student has acquired. And critical to this conversation is the understanding that this support and the devices and the processes are for the entire duration of the student's studies, right? So what we're presenting to you today is really all encompassing. And as I've said, when you're introduced to InConnect by Paul, you will see how technology is at the heart of what we do. It's what supported our organization through COVID and lockdown. Right from the, I almost said right from the beginning, but several years ago, even before COVID, we had really embarked on a deliberate process to ensure that as much of what we have as an organization is in a system, and that system is accessible, and that system manages what we do as a business. I'm not going to steal Paul's thunder and trying to explain everything. As brand manager, I know what matters to me, and that's communicating with students, parents and guardians and the broader public. And when it comes to the tech, that's why Paul is here. So therefore, without further ado, Paul, if you can just take us through what is this wonderful thing called the technology strategy.
Sure thing. Good evening, everybody. It's lovely to have you all have this opportunity to talk to you. It's kind of a new approach that we're taking, and I think this may be something that we'll be able to do quite well in the future. Before I get to, I've got a few slides I'd like to talk you through, but I want to just talk a little bit about the overall ethos, if you like, within the Inscape Education Group. And many years back, in 2016 and even before that, to be honest, a decision was made that technology was going to play a significant role in how we deliver what we do to our students. And the current system that we use, I've started to call it a education enterprise management system. I know that's a bit of a mouthful, but the reason I use those terms is because it is so broad in what it does. That development was started in 2016. We're still busy with it, although we have a system that supports the bulk of the business operations for most of the time. And so our system, this integrated system, which we have called InConnect, goes all the way from where we get a lead, and it may be one of our brand ambassadors going to a school and capturing some details with the individual's permission, and taking that all the way through, providing information. At some stage, the individual will hopefully start an application. And I guess the reason all of you are here tonight is because you did that. And start the application, work all the way through that, and eventually enroll for a particular course. But the system doesn't stop there. It actually provides both the student and the lecturers with their windows into the education world of Inscape. And it also provides the bedrock, if you like, of our delivery engine of our courseware, our marks, our briefs, assignments. There's a whole lot of stuff. And the end of that whole long process is actually the graduation certificate at the end. And so it's really lead to graduation. And I think that's quite a special thing. And yes, no software is perfect, and ours is not perfect. But we do have a team that works with us, business partners, and we work on it real hard to make it useful and usable. And so what I'd like to just say, that is where we come from. And as Tulari mentioned, it was one of the major reasons why we were able to change gears in 2020 at the beginning of the year when our lives all changed, and we're able to deliver what we do with our students without more or less skipping a beat. We may have missed a week or two, or three, but after that, we figured out what we needed to do. But the reason we could do it so fast was because um, our whole institution was already running in the cloud on the system. So it was a real blessing in disguise, and it became even more refined and focused as a result of us experiencing those tough years of 2020 and 21. 22 has been much more closer to back to normal, and I think we're heading in that direction. So just understand that for us, technology is not a simple thing. For us, it's quite complex. It's also something we believe in, and it's something that we work on all the time. Now, in terms of looking at from the student's perspective, which is, I guess, where the majority of our guests are tonight, is really around, okay, let's talk about a couple of things. The first thing is around the suitability of our device, and actually Miguel's going to talk a lot about that, but I just want to mention a few things. One is that there are three options. Bring your own device, because we recognize people would like to do that, and we try and be flexible. We have selected two devices, one a Windows and one of a Mac, that actually we know will deliver the kind of performance that will be required by the time you, the student, get to third year. And as I said, we've been at this game more than 40 years, and it seems like quite a heavyweight machine. And to be honest, it is. But you need to understand that in Inscape, our goal is to get our students industry ready. And so to be industry ready, you need to actually work with industry software. And while we get educational licenses, this is not educational software. This is actually the real deal. And therefore, it actually requires quite a lot of computing horsepower. And I know if you've come from various industries, you may be a little bit, surprised at how much we say we need. But Miguel's going to take you through and explain why it's needed. And I think we have tried to kind of be very careful. We are very mindful of the fact that someone has to buy this machine. It costs real money, and so we're not trying to overspec it. We're trying to say, as you start this course and get to the end of it, our goal is that this unit that you have purchased will actually do the job. I think in some previous years we may have been a bit light on the bottom end of what we were saying would work, and while it would work eventually, um, as you will all know, in the end students become extremely busy and they need to get stuff done in a reasonable amount of time. So Miguel will take you through that and explain that. He's a perfect guy for it. He was a campus director for many years, and actually worked at the coalface and making sure that this thing actually works. Then we also provide, we're a strong Microsoft partner, just from the point of view that Microsoft is very good to education institutions. And so it really is very helpful. Every student is going to get um, a browser-based version of Microsoft Office. We use Teams extensively to communicate, both in terms of running classes. Some classes will be in the blended world, still delivered via Teams. Some will be in person. We also use Teams, by the way, for support. I have found when I have someone who's really struggling, the quickest, easiest way to solve the problem is to connect with them on Teams, since all of us have it, and we can usually fix it in a relatively short space of time. Um, Microsoft Office obviously delivers the emailing system and Word and Excel and PowerPoint, and storage in OneDrive. So that really gives us a good platform to work from. Then on top of that, we have course specific software. So I've given an example there, Adobe. Adobe a Creative Cloud is a huge set of software apps that Adobe provide, and is the prevailing software used in our industry, at least in many of them that we relate to. And that's also one of the apps that needs quite a bit of horsepower to operate. But that's just one example. And we provide student licenses to the full suite of Adobe. And we're licensed for them to use it in a non-commercial way. And we know that some students have side jobs, but this is non-commercial software. It is actually designed specifically, the license is for education, but it provides the full functionality. So that's one. We also provide software for from Autodesk and various other places. So the variety of software packages that are required for your course will be provided in the study pack. And that will get both provided, licensed, and also supported. And some of them are loads that are put on by Neil, who's going to talk in a little while, and some is for the student just to follow a how-to menu and do it themselves. And we also have obviously Wi-Fi on all of our campuses, and the students will have access to use that as freely as much as they want and as much as they are able to. And then we also provide desktop support. Now, I'm going to talk in a minute about the application that we provide to the students, but just give you a comprehensive view that we have found over the years that it's important to provide everything that our students need to get the job done. Then there are general academic software apps. So these, every student will get a license of these. These are actually licenses we pay for, but LinkedIn Learning will get used in some of the courseware. ProQuest is our digital library app, and quite as many books as we can find on ProQuest as they can, we will deliver via ProQuest. It's a good modern tool, and it's also ProQuest in particular is designed for universities. So that works very well. And then Grammarly, both for, I guess, grammar, but it's really for looking at plagiarism, and every student gets a copy of that. And I see from the number of licenses that are really entered into and used, you can see when assignments are due, because there's a definitely an increase in people registering on Grammarly, but everybody gets access to that. So this is, as a student, this is what it'll look like when you log into InConnect. And I'm not going to take too much time, because you will actually be taken through this piece by piece, if you like, when you join in February, March next year. So this will be explained in great detail, but just to give you an idea, we track two parts, and the bottom part hasn't come through too clearly, at least not on my screen here, but the top part is attendance. So all of those bars would represent one subject in your course, and it would look at the attendance. And again, we know from experience that if you attend 80% of the lectures, you have a much better chance of passing than if you don't. The one below that is not very visible is the performance in terms of marks, also by subject. And we provide there a class average. So you can actually see how you are performing against the class average. So that's some useful information. You can see the average class mark, course mark rather, that's all the subjects, that's a running total, attendance running total. You can see if you're behind in your assignments in the top right hand corner there, or if there's some that are overdue. There's access to timetables, there's access to information. You can set your own to-do lists, and there's also a few things on the left hand menu bar. We're looking at the dashboard. The chat is an internal system to InConnect, which is actually for communication between students and students in the same course, and students and their lecturers. And so the lecturer can talk to one class of students or onto a single individual student. So it's obviously the people will still have WhatsApp groups and various other communication methods, but that's one of them. Then their calendar, which tells them when their lectures are. And then finally, all of the policies and procedures that are relevant for the students are provided, so that they can actually, the access to information is all made available. I think that's it from my side for now. And I think I'll hand over to Miguel, or back to Tulari.
And thank you very much, Paul. And yeah, I think that was quite comprehensive in laying out essentially what are the frameworks of how we operate as an institution, and how, to Paul's explanation, InConnect, while you may have seen the student dashboard, there's obviously then a dashboard for lecturers, and there's a dashboard for the campus directors, and all of it working seamlessly to ensure that the information that is needed for a student's success, as well as for lecturers to be able to see how students are progressing, and for the fee payer as well, the guardian, the parent, to also just keep an eye on that. And again, to Paul's point, next year during the onboarding week, when students come for Reg Week, more detail will be expressed, and you will have a full understanding of how you can access InConnect through both profiles, as a fee payer, as a parent, as a guardian, as well as a student, to make sure that everybody's getting the same information. So without further ado, we're going to hand over to Miguel to discuss devices and software. And this is crucial because, again, to Paul's point, when students start in first year, particularly diploma and degree students, the software and the devices that they need have to sustain over a 3-year period. You want students to be able to work and work efficiently, especially when you are in things like when you're rendering 3D models or anything that takes up a lot of memory. It's really important that your device lasts, because every single year the complexity of the kind of work that young people engage with just increases. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Miguel.
Thank you, Tilari, and good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening, as Paul mentioned. So devices, I've been around at Inscape for quite some time, as Paul mentioned earlier, as well as in the role of campus director. Prior to that, campus academic manager, before moving on to business development, which is a role I fulfill now. And the reason why I'm giving you all of that background and information is the long journey that we've had at Inscape with regards to what devices are best suited to which disciplines. So it is vitally important that when we as Inscape advise our students, parents, account payers, that the specification that you're seeing on the screen right now, and that can be accessed through our website, is what you require. This is the minimum. So the spec that we're showing and the spec that we're expecting within the devices, whether that be a Windows-based operating system or an Apple-based or Mac-based operating system, that is to see each of our students through their entire duration of their studies, whether it be a 1-year course, 3 years, or if they're going on to complete 4 years of studies with us, or even with another institution. So with the spec that we're seeing there, this is what is required. So if we look at our Windows devices, which is on your screen right now, these devices can be used in any of our offerings, but specifically with our built environment courses, those being our highest certificates in architectural technology, our highest certificates in interior decorating, our degrees and diplomas within interior or within those built environment courses. It is imperative that as account payers, as prospective students or new students, as parents, that you ensure that you get a Windows device or Windows operating system. We do stress this, and the main reason is, as Tilari just mentioned, there are rendering programs that each of the students would learn over their course. But more importantly, those programs are largely based within the Autodesk software offering. At the moment, Autodesk has only opened up AutoCAD to run on the Apple operating system, but the likes of Revit and 3ds Max are not yet launched for the Mac operating system. So what this really boils down to is that each of our students studying in the built environment would learn Revit at some point, as well as 3ds Max, whether they're in the diploma degree courses, and that will not run on an Apple device. So it is important that everyone understands that. As we look through the device specification as well, there is the price tag. The price tag is not a small price tag. We understand that, but this is the design world and we need the computing power. My background personally is interior design and architecture. Those are the two worlds that I've worked in prior to my role that I play now. And the memory that we're working with, the processor, as well as the graphics card, are integral to the success of any student. So I've also personally tested the devices that we have on offer here under the Apple, which I'll get to shortly, but the Windows as well. I've taken it through a lot of my projects that I've worked on over the years. And I can honestly say and personally say that these devices are really blew my mind. The rendering was incredibly quick. The response time from switching on to render to opening programs is truly unbelievable. So these are the kinds of specs that we're looking at. If you have a device that you think actually is or meets this type of spec, I would urge you to actually contact your campus directors and literally send them, if you go to My Computer, right-click Properties, send them one of those. They'll chat with DBS as well and with their specific rep in their in their town, and they can tell you if your device matches or if you need to purchase an updated device. With regards to the MacBook specifications, so these are targeted at our graphic design, fashion design, ideation, all the courses that are not built environment. The spec that we have put together is, again, a spec that has been tested and tried. It's the Apple M2 chip, not trip. With 16 gig memory. This is imperative. So the 16 gig RAM, please do not go out and purchase a device with 8 gig RAM, especially on the new MacBooks, as a lot of these are integrated and cannot be upgraded after purchase. So just please do go through this information closely. With the storage of the 512 gig SSD, which is on both Windows as well as the Apple. Again, you can get the 258 in the shop. They'll say to you, it's enough, but really for what we're teaching you, for the courses that you're going through, it's not going to be sufficient on a 256 gig. We really need to focus on a 512 SSD. So with the Apple devices, they are really designed to run Adobe programs to the full extent. I don't think anyone would argue that the Apple is not good enough for Adobe. It's certainly the graphic design world and art director world has proven this time and time again. But again, please, I just need to stress before we move on to the BYODs that these cannot be used in the built environment courses. Okay. With all the prices as well, please note that all include VAT, but they also, in that price is the device setup fee of 3,499, which is on the screen right now. So when we're looking at that, and when you're looking at purchasing, if you've got a contact, I know a lot of the parents may be working in the IT world or have suppliers that supply their companies or in their personal capacity. Just please do take note of the bring your own device fee, which is the setup of 3,499. So that would be in addition to what you would purchase if you're bringing your own device. So it is important to note that the prices that we have on our Windows devices and the MacBook devices through our designated suppliers includes the 3,499. So with the 3,499, we've put the basic overview of the specifications for the Windows device as well as the MacBook. So in the event that you just want to cross-check that with what you have already, or send that to a supplier that you might have, as I've mentioned, please just send them this information and make sure that they meet these specifications, as well as, which is something I did not mention earlier, which is the built-in camera. So as Paul did mention, we do a blended learning. So there are times where our students in specific subjects might present virtually like we are doing this evening, in which case that built-in camera is really important and not always included in some of the newer devices. But I think that's everything from my side. To Laurie, I can add or hand back to you.
Thanks, Miguel. And again, yeah, I think it's worth stressing again to those in the audience that it is imperative that the device that you bring to Inscape meet those minimum specifications. One of the things we pride ourselves in at Inscape is that when students arrive for the first day of class, that they should all be on an equal footing. And if the device that you have right from the get-go is not sufficient, immediately there will be problems from, the students start using devices immediately, no matter how many times a lecturer says, no, today we're going to touch the pencil first, or we're going to use paper first. They are already running to the devices. They're already downloading the software that has been assigned to them. They're already testing. Some of the students even come with prior experience. So again, it's just so important that the device that they have meet those minimum specifications so that right from the beginning, they are ready. Next is going to be Neil, who will be taking us through the onboarding and support provided by his company, DBS. So DBS is a partner of Inscape, and when students are having issues with machines, with connectivity, with some of the software, DBS is the team that the students contact, and DBS helps the students through, again, in resolving those matters so that they can get back to learning and to using their software appropriately and efficiently. Without me saying too much, Neil's slides are pretty clear on what's going to happen. I'm going to hand over to him. Neil?
Thanks, Talari. I appreciate the introduction. Evening, everyone. Thank you very much for taking time out to come and sit and listen. It's a very important process that we're going through here, and it's a great process that Inscape have put together here for everyone in the environment. And I just want to touch on a couple of things that Talari, Paul, and Miguel have all said here right from the beginning. And that is exactly the point of your device. Being on the support side of it and supporting you as the student on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. It may that be from a software support level, may that be from a hardware support level. If you don't have the right equipment, you're not going to enjoy it. It's going to make your life very difficult and your studies here a lot harder. So we've gone through the process with Paul and Miguel and the team in terms of looking at the specifications on device that you're looking for. So to touch on the points from an onboarding perspective for the students and how that would look and how it will work for you, we will be uploading as early as of next week the device registration website, which will then also give you the minimum specifications. When you put your specifications onto that document, it will tell you straight away if your device from a bring your own device, or what we call a BYOD, isn't up to specification. If that's the case, I urge you to contact Inscape, discuss it with them, see what they can make for you, what solution that they can do for you with one of either the Windows or the Mac device to get you up to speed. Right. If your device is purchased through Inscape, you obviously have the correct specifications for 2023 going on for your 3 to 4 year study period. We would then obviously receive that device through Inscape. We will set it up and preset that up for you before you even receive it. If you're a BYO student, what would happen in that scenario is you would log on to the device registration, which is the dbstechnology.co.za/Inscape. That will then take you through a process of steps. The first thing that will pop up when you log on will be your device booking date. So if you're a first, second, third, or postgrad student, it will give you those days where you can bring it in. And those days are it's Monday or a Thursday or a Wednesday, and you can bring it in those times. If it's tomorrow's Monday and you've got time to go and do it, then do it. Following week. So we're giving you plenty of time to bring in your devices to get checked or start to be setting up for you. So if you follow that device registration will then take you through to a point of steps where you'll fill in all your information, be that your information for to log onto your machine. We'll ask you, have you backed up your device? That means, have you backed up all of your external devices so that into an external device? Because I can tell you now that we are going to scrub the machine. Because you are connecting onto the Inscape Wi-Fi, as Paul had mentioned earlier, we need to make sure that the information or any information that is on your machine is clean and is virus-free. So we urge you to make sure your device is backed up to an external device before you bring it in. So when we do set it up, we set it up with just the relevant information for study. That will then bring out a documentation that will be a pre-printable documentation that if I just ask you to print that out, slide that into the front into the laptop and just close the lid. So when you bring it in, all that information is in there for us to be able to easily read it, your contact numbers, username and passwords, and then we'll set it up in accordance with that. Once we have set it up, see some questions come through, but I'm pretty sure Talari will run through those questions at the end of the presentations. So we will get to questions. With regards to the documentation and how to, let me talk around the documentation first. the how-to, you can even download it prior to, right from the device registration on the URL that's 11.2. You can download that just to have a read through for yourself, get yourself familiarized with it. I've done this for a while with Inscape, and I can tell you now that 99% of the students do not read the how-to. The how-to is exactly what it says. It's how to do what you need for your studies. Please read that. It's in a step-by-step format. The reason it's in the step-by-step format is we've made it with pictures, how-tos, screenshots to make it very simple for you to set it up. And by setting it up in steps 1, 2, and following the full steps, it actually works in a sequence. You have to register your Office 365 account with your Inscape student number, email address. That will then send you the activation for your Adobe or for your Autodesk. If you haven't done the first step, you can't expect to have step 3 done. So first off, there will be a how-to on the device registration that you can read through prior. There will, however, also be a how-to saved to your desktop when you log in. So you can open it up. If you haven't read it on the device registration URL, you're welcome to open it up on your desktop and read it and step by step go through it when you receive your device back from DBS. And once again, I urge you, please read through that. The amounts of times we've had to go back because we haven't read through it, that's your first step. With your how-to, once you've logged in and you've got all your applications, your Adobe, your Autodesk, your Revit, whatever your courseware is going for, please speak to your lecturers, to your campus directors about what software they recommend you install. With the Adobe Creative Suite, you get the full suite of packages. Please don't go and download everything. Rather, download the applications that are required for your courseware. The more you download to your device, the slower you make your device. So I just implore you to just download the relevant information for the relevant courseware at the time. You will go through all of the course and you will go through 90% of Adobe Creative Suite applications in any event, but just follow with what your lecturers and your campus directors are suggesting to you. Parallels process. Parallels process is purely Parallels for Mac, and that is in the event that someone is in the built environment and they want to still have a Mac. I personally don't recommend it. If you want to be in the build environment and you need to have Revit or installed on your machine, rather use a Windows device. As Miguel rightfully mentioned earlier, there is no build for that in the Mac environment as yet. We're also going to the M2 chip. Last year we had the M1 chip. We had a few issues with that in the M1 chip. The M2 has been sorted out, so there's no issues there. So we won't have those issues again. However, with Parallels is an additional license that you have to purchase on a yearly basis that segregates, in essence, your machine to being a Mac machine as well as a Windows machine. So it can make it slightly more cumbersome in terms of from a build environment if you insist on wanting to run with a Mac, that you then have to switch across to your Windows device to run in the build environment applications. From a DBS support staff perspective, I have technicians on site. They come through, they sit down, they're allocated time schedules for the students where they can come if they've got any issues. And like I said earlier, if that has to do with software, if it has to do with hardware, if it has to do with potential upgrades to your machine, let's say you feel that you want to, the base is 16 gigs. And let's be honest here. A lot of you guys out there are either playing online or playing gaming as well, and you want to run a 32. We can help you with that. We can then upgrade it. And then you can contact us, speak to one of my staff. They will speak to us at head office, and then we will look into that for you and negotiate that with you directly in terms of any upgrades. From the staff support side, I also ask you to please stick to those times where the technician is on site. This way it allows us to manage you and help you to get to your courseware as quickly as possible. We also have, and this is very important, and this is something that Paul and I go through on a monthly basis in terms of reporting and seeing where are the issues. We have a help desk ticketing system, which is part of your how to log a ticket. So it'll be in the how-to for you as well to read through. We please ask that every single student log a ticket if they can. We understand if your machine is not turning on and you can't get onto your emails, of course you can't log a ticket. Please notify the technician on site so he can then set a ticket for you. This way it allows us from a management position to look at where the software issues are not, where the reoccurring issues